We got a pretty good, valuable clue about the subject of these scriptures and the fact that the term Lord is used over 24 times in the verses that we're going to be looking at this morning. And this is a great message about the relationship of Israel with the Lord, because the term Lord here means Jehovah. We don't often think about things this way, but folks, for a child of God, every decision we make involves our relationship with the Lord, whether we think about it that way or not. Every decision we make involves our relationship with Him. And until Samuel delivered what we're going to look at this morning, this message here to the people of Israel, they evidently didn't see their desire for a king as a rejection of God. In their minds, they were rejecting. If you remember about Samuel and how he was raised, if you remember about Israel and Hophni and Phinehas, the two sons, Israel was probably turned off, and they probably didn't see their rejection of God and wanting a king. They had endured this for years and years, and they just wanted a better form of government. So they probably didn't look at it as a rejection of God by asking for a king, because in their minds they were rejecting Samuel and all the unrighteous sons for a more powerful and permanent type of government. This was a very serious change in that relationship with God, though. And they didn't understand this, I don't believe. It was a serious change in the relationship of Israel with God, and the people needed to know the consequences of the choice. I don't care what choice you make, folks, there's always a consequence. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago. We do not have to make bad choices, but we do have to live with the consequences of every choice that we make. The message was a warning that we're going to look at this morning that Samuel gives here. The message is a warning about future changes that were going to take place in Israel, because now they were going to have a king. Israel would become like every other nation in a lot of ways. But this conformity alone would not bring strength to Israel, is what Samuel's trying to tell them here that we're going to look at. Whether Israel had a leader like Moses or a judge or a king, their strength was still in the relationship with God. And we need to look at it the same way. I don't care who's in the White House. I don't care who's in the governor's house. I don't care who we elect. Our number one choice should be God. Our relationship. I'm going to tell you something. No man that you elect is going to save you. And as Israel, it didn't matter if it was Moses or if it was a judge or if it was a king, their strength was still going to be in their relationship with God. Our strength is still in our relationship with God. I don't care who's fulfilling what office. We got to keep that in mind. So let's just start off with 1 Samuel chapter 12. Let's start off with verses 1 through 7. Because this is where Samuel addresses Israel here, the people. And it says, "And Samuel said unto all Israel, Behold, I have hearkened unto your voice and all that ye said unto me, and have made a king over you. And now, behold, the king walketh before you. And I am old and gray-headed," he says. "And behold, my sons are with you. And I have walked before you from my childhood unto this day. Behold, here I am, witness against me before the Lord and before his anointed, whose ox have I taken? Or whose ass have I taken? Or whom have I defrauded? Whom have I oppressed? Or of whose hand have I received any bribe to blind mine eyes wherewith? And I will restore it to you." And they said, "Thou hast not defrauded us, nor oppressed us, neither hast thou taken aught of any man's hand." And he said unto them, "The Lord is witness against you, and his anointed is witness this day, that ye have not found aught in my hand." And they answered, "He is witness." And Samuel said unto the people, "It is the Lord that advanced Moses and Aaron, and that brought your fathers up out of the land of Egypt. Now therefore stand still, that I may reason with you before the Lord of all the righteous acts of the Lord, which he did to you and to your fathers. Let's stop right there. Samuel's reasoning with Israel right now, the people of Israel. He's talking to them. He goes, hey, look, I ain't done anything wrong. You tell me if I have. Lord, be my witness right now. Have I taken anything from you? Have I stolen anything from you? Have I done anything to you? This was not a message of decision. It was a message of consequence. Samuel had listed it to the demands of the people, and after he had prayed, he had been instructed by God to listen to them and make them a king. Remember I said sometimes God will give you exactly what you're asking for, even though... Now the choice had been made, and Saul had been chosen, and Saul had been anointed as king. And it was necessary now for all Israel to know what was going to happen next. And in many ways, both Saul and Israel were very underprepared for what was fixing to happen. There was going to be some drastic changes that were going to take place in their lives. Not just the nation of Israel, but for Saul, who wasn't ready to be king either. It was also a message of transition, because it's a different type of government that they had asked for and that they were going to be getting. Samuel said he was old and gray-headed. Gray hair doesn't not necessarily indicate old age. My brother is only 3 years older than me, and he looks older than my granddad, who is 100. Mike has pure white hair and white beard, does he not, Julie? He plays Santa Claus, and he does a really good job of it, except now he's skinny. Mike looks like he's 100 years old, but he's only 55. Gray hair does not necessarily indicate old age, but old age usually means gray hair. Or in the case of Elisha, no hair. If Gordon was here, I'd compare Gordon to Elisha right now. Scott, you're getting close, buddy. I am too, in some spots. Samuel's life on earth was nearing an end here, okay? And Saul was a much younger man. And Saul was going to be now the ruler over Israel. I want to note that Saul wasn't a replacement for Samuel at all. I don't mean that Saul's not replacing Samuel. A change was fixing to take place, and there was going to be more men like Samuel who served as judge and prophet. Samuel had a strong spiritual background, and he had great leadership skills. Saul lacked both of those. Samuel had given his life to the service of his nation. He had also given his sons to the service of Israel, and he pointed that out. Although they had failed at their job, and that might have been part of the reason why Israel kept asking for a king. Remember Hophni and Phinehas' sons, and now you got Samuel's sons, and they just kept failing the people of Israel. Israel didn't look at this as a decision of turning from God, probably, but their choice was when they asked for a king. No one could accuse Samuel of a lack of love, and he's pointing this out to him. Samuel was not boasting. He was making an honest statement of the situation, and he was giving a reason, and he was giving a reason to carefully listen to his message. He wanted the people of Israel to understand, hey, there's fixing to be some changes here. You've made a choice. This is what's going to happen because of that choice. And Samuel began by reminding Israel of its past. It was the Lord that had led and empowered Moses and Aaron to bring them up out of Egypt. And that was the same Lord who had a message for this generation in Israel. Folks, it's very vital that we realize God doesn't change. God doesn't go away. God doesn't stop trying to accomplish his will among men. The plans of God for Israel were the same under Samuel as they had been when God revealed them to Abraham. God would be Israel's God, and they would be his people no matter what. But sometimes when we make choices, we have to deal with the consequences. So let's look at verse 12 of 1 Samuel chapter 12. And when he saw that Nahash, the king of the children of Ammon, came against you, he said, ye said unto me, Nay, but a king shall reign over us, when the Lord your God was your king. He's still talking to Israel here. He's still giving them a message of, hey, things are fixing to change here. Now therefore, behold, the king whom ye have chosen and whom ye have desired, and behold, the Lord hath set a king over you. If you will fear the Lord and serve him and obey his voice and not rebel against the commandment of the Lord, then shall both ye and also the king that reigneth over you continue following the Lord your God. But if ye will not obey the voice of the Lord, but rebel against the commandment of the Lord, then shall the hand of the Lord be against you as it was against your fathers. He's still giving them a history lesson here. Now therefore stand and see this great thing which the Lord will do before your eyes. Is it not wheat harvest today? Uh-oh. When somebody asks you a question like that, you better start paying attention because something's fixing to happen. So Samuel asked people of Israel, hey, isn't today wheat harvest? I will call unto the Lord, and he shall send thunder and rain, that ye may perceive and see that your wickedness is great, which ye have done in the sight of the Lord, in asking you a king. So Samuel called unto the Lord, and the Lord sent thunder and rain that day, and all the people greatly feared the Lord and Samuel. God hadn't changed, but the people had. This was a new generation, and they had forgotten or they had just ignored the blessings of the past. And they looked around. They looked around them. They didn't look up to heaven. And they decided that they wanted to be like all the other nations. The Philistines had a powerful king named Nahash. Samuel brings him up in verse 12. And in some ways, Israel admired these warlike people, and they wanted a strong king for themselves. But they failed to realize that they already had a king more powerful than Nahash. They had God. They forgot everything that God had done for them. They wanted an earthly king when they already had a heavenly king. Folks, the desire for the things of the world is a subtle but real rejection of God. If we truly accept the lordship of Jesus, then we must have the same attitude toward the world that Jesus had. That's a pretty life-changing idea. Imagine if you looked at the world the way Jesus looked at it. Remember those little bracelets that came out in the 80s or the 90s? WWJD. What would Jesus do? Any of y'all ever have those braces or bracelets? What would Jesus do? What if you really looked at the world the way Jesus does? It's a life-changing idea, but search the scriptures and you will see, folks, it's true. In demanding a king, Israel had also rejected God. If we asked a lot of people today, or many people, if they wanted to reject God and get out and get him out of their lives, they would likely say that they wouldn't. And I'm not talking about non-Christians. I'm talking about y'all right now. If I asked you, would you rather get rid of Jesus out of your life right now and get rid of God? You'd probably say no, right? But the rejection of God is the unintended consequences of the choice to be friends with the world. When we choose to be friends with the world, we are rejecting God. We're asking him to get out of our lives. When we choose to go along with what the world's going along with right now, whether it be gay, lesbian marriage, or whatever, or inclusion, or DEI, or all that other garbage, we are rejecting God. Now Israel had a king, and Samuel challenged them to take a good, long, hard look at Saul. This was a man that they demanded for and that God had chosen. I want to notice carefully in verse 14 and 15 there's a repeated warning to fear and serve the Lord that Samuel gives the Israelites here. In verse 14 it says, if ye will fear the Lord and serve him and obey his voice and not rebel against the commandment of the Lord, then shall both ye and also the king that reigneth over you continue following the Lord your God. A little bit of good news. Hey, if you will do this, the Lord will still keep his hand on you. And in verse 15, but if ye will not obey the voice of the Lord, but rebel against the commandment of the Lord, then shall the hand of the Lord be against you as it was against your fathers. And he had already reminded them how Moses and Aaron had brought them up out of Egypt and what had happened. What the forefathers had done. Look at what happened. This is the history. I'm telling yourself, folks, if you don't know your history, you're going to repeat it. And Samuel then gave Israel some conditional promises. And this means that the actions of God were dependent on the choices of the people. If the people maintained a right relationship with the Lord, then both Israel and its new king could prosper. However, if the people refused to obey the Lord, then the hand of the Lord was going to be against them. It's very simple and easy to understand teaching that Samuel's given Israel here. If we want God in our lives to guide us and protect us, then folks, we've got to listen to what he says. And we've got to do our best to maintain a right relationship with him, no matter who's watching or who's looking or what the world says about us. How can people constantly reject everything God says and does and then be surprised when he doesn't bless them? I don't understand it. And to prove this and to establish his teaching, Samuel called on God, Samuel called on God. He said, hey, look, isn't today harvest day? Let me show you what God can do. And so Samuel called upon God to produce a devastating storm right at the time of harvest. Harvest was a very important season in these people's lives. If it didn't happen, they probably didn't make money. They couldn't survive. Samuel says, let me show you what God can do. He called upon God to produce a thunderstorm. And I believe it was a really bad thunderstorm. Have y'all ever been in a real bad thunderstorm? Lightning flashes. Just the other day we had one a few weeks ago. I was at work. And we have this Perry weather system on top of the concession stand. It's like a little weather radar station. And it goes off when lightning strikes so many miles away. That thing was going off left and right. I'm standing inside a concession stand watching lightning flash and thunder at the same time, pouring down rain. And I don't care what the mayor of Plano says. Lightning struck this pond right over here in Lakewood and killed a bunch of fish. I'll show you some pictures of it. They said it was a lack of oxygen, but I find it kind of coincidence that all the fish died right after the thunderstorm. That was some really bad. I can't imagine what kind of storm Samuel asked God to produce here during a time of harvest. The harvest was stopped, and it was at a time of hunger, and want was brought to the nation. This was a miracle that it was done to teach Israel how seriously God took this change of government. Look at verses 19 through 25 here of 1 Samuel chapter 12. Because, folks, the Lord's not going to forsake his people. It says, and all the people said unto Samuel, pray for thy servants unto the Lord thy God, that we die not. It was a pretty bad storm. For we have added unto all our sins this evil to ask us a king. And Samuel said unto the people, fear not, ye have done all this wickedness, yet turn not aside from following the Lord, but serve the Lord with all your heart. And turn ye not aside, for then should ye go after vain things, which cannot profit nor deliver, for they are vain. For the Lord will not forsake his people for his great name's sake, because it hath pleased the Lord to make you his people. Moreover, as for me, God forbid that I should sin against the Lord in ceasing to pray for you. But I will teach you the good and the right way. Only fear the Lord and serve him in truth with all your heart, for consider how great things he hath done for you. But if ye shall still do wickedly, ye shall be consumed, both you and your king. When Israel first demanded a king, they rejected the advice and they rejected the counsel that Samuel was trying to give them. When Samuel warned them of the consequences of having a king, they once again rejected his advice and his counsel. Now that their new king was standing before them, they finally admitted that they had sinned and done evil in asking for a king. I believe the storm was more convincing than just Saul standing up there by himself. I think the storm convinced them, hey, the people actually thought they were going to die in this storm. That's how bad it was. Samuel gave the people of Israel the reassuring message that even though they had done wickedness, God wasn't going to forsake them. God keeps his unconditional promises, whether or not men keep theirs. The cure for sin, just as it was back then, is the same as it is now. Repentance followed with service to the Lord with all your heart. So Samuel then made an earnest appeal for all Israel to take the moment seriously. They were admonished, or they were warned, to not turn aside and go after vain or empty and useless things that would be of no profit to them. I think a lot of times we begin with good intentions, but we get turned aside by a lot of the vanities of life. God and Israel are eternally bound together, folks. You need to understand that. Israel, the nation of Israel, and God are eternally bound together. Israel was the choice and the pleasure of God. And that hasn't changed. Just look at what's going on. Look at Israel in today's news and what's going on with Israel and tell me that Israel is still not God's people. Look on a map and see how big Israel is compared to everybody else in the Middle East. And tell me Israel's not God's people. God has made the same kind of permanent promises in the New Testament, and folks, we need to take them seriously. The ideal situation is for the pleasure of God to also be the pleasure of God's people. I don't know how you pray. I'll tell you how I do it. Just about every time I pray, I ask God that he gets the glory out of my life. That whatever rewards, that he gets the pleasure out of it. That whatever I do, he'll find pleasure in it. I don't always do the right thing, folks. I don't. I'm human. A vindictive and harsh spirit only adds sin to other sin. Samuel showed his love for Israel when he told them that he would never stop praying for them. All his life, Samuel had taught Israel the good and the right way, and he was going to continue to do that. There's never a time for God's men to get discouraged. There's never a time for God's men to just quit. You see it in churches, you see it in America today, you see it in Christians today. We'll just break it really, really simple down. A lot of churches, the size of them are dwindling because the Christians in the church are getting their feelings hurt because other Christians aren't doing what those Christians think those Christians ought to do. Well, I didn't see Scott in church on Sunday. If Scott ain't got to come to church, I don't have to come to church. It's as stupid and as simple as that. You don't know what's going on in Scott's life. Why don't you call Scott up and say, hey, brother, you need some help? You want to pray together? Can I do anything for you? Instead of criticizing him and you using that as a way not to come in because Scott didn't come. Now, that's very simple and that's very trivial, but, folks, that's what's going on. You're allowing the devil. He admonished the people, he warned the people of Israel once more to do three important things. First, fear the Lord. This is what we ought to be doing. Number one thing, we should be fearing the Lord. And I'm not saying afraid. The word fear here, I mean respect. I'm going to tell you something. The people of Israel was very afraid during this thunderstorm that Samuel asked the Lord to produce. Number one thing, fear the Lord, or show God that the respect and the reverence due him. Remember the model prayer? How does that start off? Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. What does that word hallowed means? So fear the Lord, or show him the respect and reverence due him. That's the number one thing. And next, they were to serve the Lord in truth with all their hearts. And 3, they were to preserve their link to the past and never forget the blessings that God had already brought to Israel. You want to start feeling sorry for yourself? Start thinking about what God has allowed you to do already. Or maybe what he's kept you from doing already. When me and Julie get on the road, when we go down south or we take a trip, we always say a prayer before we leave the driveway. Julie does. I don't know, because she probably doesn't trust my driving. And I don't understand that, because I've never not gotten her anywhere safely. But she always says a prayer as we're leaving the driveway, and I kind of used to think, really? You don't trust me? Okay, go ahead, pray. I'll keep God on my side. But she always says a prayer, Lord, please give us safe traveling graces. And we have GPS now, so the phone's hooked up to the truck. And I don't know how to read it because I'm colorblind, but Julie will say, oh, it's red up here. We're fixing to get a 2-hour backup. And I'm like, dadgummit, 2 hours behind. I'm not going to get down there in time to do A, B, and C. How many times has God probably thrown a roadblock up in your way, or to save you from something that might have happened if you had stayed on course? Just this last trip to Tennessee, we didn't have no dogs with us. We only had one bag, if you can believe that. We didn't have no dogs with us, and we stopped 4 stinking times on the way down to go to the bathroom. I have driven from here to Alabama and never stopped but once. But no, we stopped more this trip, and we didn't even go all the way down. And it was the same way on the way back. And I was starting to get irritated because I wanted to get home because I had to go to work the next day. And about 45 minutes from the house, Julie says, can we stop and go to the bathroom? No. But then I thought, what if I don't stop and I get in a wreck up here? So I whooped over at the rest area, and I went to the bathroom too. And we got home safely. All because you prayed, baby. Folks, fear the Lord. Give him the respect and reverence that's due him. Serve the Lord in truth with all your heart. All your heart. Not some of it, not part of it. Everything you do, all of it. And finally, remember the past. Remember what he's done for you already. If Israel forgot these lessons, they would be consumed along with their king, is what Samuel was telling them. And he's telling us the same thing. The presence of a king was not a guaranteed success for Israel. He began his message by telling Israel to fear, and he ended it by telling them to fear not. And what I mean by that is, the only thing Israel could do now, they've already asked for a king, God's given them a king. The only thing that they could do now was to accept the situation that their unbelief had created and make the most of it. How often have we received exactly what we asked for? I've asked that question before in this series of lessons. How often have we asked exactly what we wish for and then regretted it? The Lord would not reject Israel or forsake his holy covenant. God's purpose is to use Israel to bring glory to his name. And he's still working in this world to bring that purpose to pass. The people of Israel had sinned. They had sinned in desiring a king. But God was going to help them if they feared him and obeyed him. Unfortunately, though, this generation and many generations to come disobeyed the terms of that covenant that God had made with Israel. And God exiled them to Babylon to cure their idolatry. Some changes are inevitable. And some changes are necessary. And some changes just come about because of bad decisions. But no matter what the source of the change may be, God's work has got to go on. Faith in God and righteous living are helpful in any situation. And this challenging message called Israel back to their spiritual roots. Samuel was talking to Israel, folks. What you ought to get out of this lesson, number one, do what? Fear God. Give him the respect. Number two, what are we supposed to do? Number two, serve him wholeheartedly with all of our heart. And number three, just remember what he's already done for us. So if you're not fearing God, first off, if you're not serving him with your whole heart, and then you're not remembering your past, you're going to have problems. Lord, thank you for the day. Thank you for the many blessings. I ask and pray, dear Father, that we take this lesson to heart and that we really start applying it to our lives. Please forgive me my sins and where I failed you, and all these things I ask in Jesus' name. Amen.